Welcome, everybody. This is Joshua here. We've got a couple more minutes before we start, so I thought I would entertain you with some ukulele this morning from sunny Portland, Oregon. Enjoy, and please, in the chat, please let me know where you're coming in from. We have folks from Jason from Houston, Alex from California, Amir from Seattle, Brenda from Maryland. Welcome, everybody. I'll play for you for a few minutes and then we'll get going. Hey, Ross from Ireland, welcome. Hey, Martin from the UK. Thanks, Laurie. Thanks, Tom. Oh, you don't want to hear me singing, Dennis. All right. That's top of the hour. So let's go ahead and get started. This will be recorded. So yes, that embarrassing song will be available for everybody to listen to later. We've got 38 folks on the call, and I think a lot of people registered so that they can take advantage of the recording later. So we're not going to wait. We're just going to plow right in. I have a page of notes that I want to get through. About 30 minutes of today is going to be me just going through the setup process. And the last half hour or so is going to be for you, for your questions. Today's training, or we call it a webinar, it's not a sales call. You guys are already Billy customers. Thank you. I'm not going to ask you to do anything. I'm not going to have any offers or anything like that at the end. This is just a training, okay? So it's me, you, and some screen sharing. So don't have to worry about anything sneaky coming up at the end or whatever. I've seen webinars that do that. I just want to really help you get started with Billy and take advantage of it. And also no slides. I was watching a TED Talk yesterday on goal setting, which I thought was really interesting. Basically, it said goal setting is just a bad idea. Because when you're setting goals, until you reach that goal, you're in a constant state of failure. And that doesn't feel good. And then when you achieve that goal, it's sort of, okay, now what? Now you need another goal. And so goal setting has kind of been debunked by a lot of professionals and coaches. And instead, what people are advocating for a successful business, happy life, etc., is actually a process, creating processes. So for example, if you wanted to be a writer, instead of saying, I'm going to finish my novel, and until that novel's finished, you're just a failure, you can say, no, I'm a writer, so I'm going to write 500 to 750 words a day. And as long as I have that process and keep that process, I'm going to be succeeding. I'm going to feel like I'm doing something productive. And that's exactly what Billy is trying to do. And one of the prices you pay for a good process is that the setup can be involved. But for every 1 hour you spend setting up a process, you're saving hours and hours and hours and hours down the line when you don't have to worry about it later. So that's what I want to do today, is help you set up that process that Billy is going to be able to offer you for your business financial success. Welcome, everyone. We have folks from the US, UK, Nova Scotia, in Canada, Johannesburg. Welcome from around the world. It is so nice to have you. Let's see, quick introduction to who I am. I play the ukulele. I love playing the ukulele. Been playing for about 3 years. I started with Billy earlier this year. So I started in January with Billy, with their executive team. They did such a nice job taking this amazing accounting platform from Denmark and translating it into English and making it more international. Now, of course, we have a ways to go. We are a new company, but the bedrock of our technology, the double entry accounting, is absolutely solid. In fact, Billy is the largest privately owned accounting software platform in Denmark. Welcome, Louisa, from the Netherlands. So that's when I got started with Billy earlier this year. My background is actually as a blogger and as a business builder. So I founded a career blog called Career Enlightenment. That did pretty well. And I wrote a book, a For Dummies book called Job Searching with Social Media for Dummies. That did well. It's in bookshops around the world. In fact, it's translated into Dutch. So Louisa, you can go find it in your bookstore. And what I'm really good at is process thinking. And that's what I'm hoping to bring to you and as well to Billy. It's why I love Billy. In fact, I switched my other businesses accounting over to Billy because I thought it did such a nice job and it's a lot easier to use than what I was using before, which I'll not name, but you can probably guess. All right, with that, I want to get started. So I'm going to remove my image, open up my screen sharing. And just really quick in chat, could you let me know that you can see my Billy dashboard? I want to make sure that you can see it. Okay, good. Thank you, guys. All right. Now, by the way, you can ask questions. So right below this video image, you can ask questions and I will see them. It's a little bit easier for me to see questions in that format than in chat because chat is going to keep going like this. When you ask a question, I'm going to see them one by one. All right, so let's get going. The first thing I want to do is introduce everybody to the help area. So at the bottom left, I'm going to make my mouse big here for a sec. There's this life raft image, this lifesaver image, and the word help. On every single page in Billy is a video. So when I click help, a video is going to pop up on every single page. So if you're stuck with quotes, you can click help and there's a video. If you're stuck with importing contacts, if this was empty, a video would pop up. There it is. There's a video. If you're stuck with bank accounts and you don't know how to use this screen, click help and there it is. So it's not totally obvious that there's a video when you click help. We should probably change that icon. When you do click help, you also see some things at the bottom. We don't have a phone number. I'm sorry, that is getting removed. And that's been a point of confusion for folks. And of course, you could always click support. I've been writing articles like 3 a day from questions that you guys are asking us. When those questions are asked over and over again, I know that I need to write some kind of documentation. So I want you to know that we take our support articles very seriously. Help is right around the corner. Of course, there's this chat bubble here, and you can ask us directly if you have any problems or questions within Billy. So I want you to know that support is right around the corner. Okay, let's dive right in. When setting up any accounting software, accounting is complicated, right? And what Billy's trying to do is simplify it. So when you're transferring from Xero or QuickBooks or Wave or Zoho or whatever, when you're moving from one accounting platform to another, it's always going to be a little bit of a challenge to clean up the data, to set up the new platform the way the old one was, and so forth. So I'm just curious how to focus on today's conversation. In chat, just let me know, are you migrating from another accounting platform? If not, what were you doing before? So Darren was from Wave, Louisa is from Wave, Xero, Melissa, QuickBooks. Starting from scratch is actually a lot easier than migrating. Zoho from Lori. Starting brand new, Alex, that's good. Yep, David, Excel is going to be easier to set up. Spreadsheets. Okay, so I would guess FreshBooks as well. Okay, so I guess it's sort of a 50-50. We'll try to address both migrating from another platform as well as just starting from scratch. Here's what I would do in any new software situation. Click on settings and go through every single settings option that you can. So we had some questions come in from our pre-webinar survey, and somebody asked, how do I change my organization's name? Well, if you clicked on settings and organization, you can change your organization name right there. You can change your contact phone number, your email address. This is also, we also had a question about your logo. Where do I upload my logo so that my invoices are branded? That's just right here. So spending 10 minutes in Billy and going through every single one of these is probably going to answer, let's say, 40% of your questions. We get a lot of questions about invoice numbering and whether it's sequential or customized. You can choose whether it's a manual inputted invoice number or a sequential one, and so forth. So it's really worth going through each one of these one at a time. Okay, so let's first talk about migrating and setting up any new accounting software. And the first thing you want to do is look at your chart of accounts. Now in accounting, the word account is used ubiquitously. So it doesn't just mean bank account. It could actually also mean expense category. So when we say chart of accounts, for those of you who are new to accounting, that doesn't just mean your credit card account or your banking account. It actually means every single bucket of numbers that you need to account for or have visibility into for your business. So the first thing I would suggest you do when you're setting up Billy is to go into your chart of accounts and make sure that you're able to categorize or creating these categories that are essential to your unique business. So for example, because I'm an author and I have royalties, what I might want to do in revenue is actually create a new account. And in this case, it's not bank account, but just account. And I might call it royalties. Okay, and from account type, it's going to be a revenue type of account. Now, every account needs an account number. And so here we'll just call it 305. And there I now have a royalties account. Now, if I messed up that account number, oh, I want that to actually be a 600 number, no problem, edit the account. And it should be, let's call it 610. That's already been used, so let's call it 615. Now I have a sales, a reimbursements account, and a royalties account for any time I get money into my business. The same is true for all of your expenses. So if we come down to expenses, what I built here is based on the U.S. tax law. So for LLCs and solo business owners. Okay, so these are your Schedule C categories. Now, for those of you in other countries, these might be called different things. They might not even be necessary. For example, healthcare costs might not even be necessary to categorize, because if you are fortunate enough to live in a country that covers your healthcare, I'm jealous, then you probably don't need to do that. Okay, I see that the people are having trouble seeing the screen. You could always close the chat window and it'll make it bigger. Unfortunately, I can't make your screen full screen in this particular webinar platform. I can increase my magnification, so I hope that helps. Okay, so chart of accounts, please take a few minutes and actually review your chart of accounts. Make sure these are indeed the expense categories that you will need to use. Now, in addition to the revenue and expense categories, you also can create new bank accounts. Now, let's talk about this for a minute. I'm curious, how many folks, and just tell me in chat, have separate business and personal accounts? Just say, yes, I have separate, or no, I kind of commingle them. Okay, good. For those of you who have separate accounts, thumbs up. Awesome. It makes things so much easier. If you do commingle, I'll show you how to take out your personal transactions in a bit. If you have a business checking account and a business credit card, this is how you're going to be able to add it. So within the category of bank and liquid assets, what this means is that liquid assets means that that money can be taken out and turned into cash in minutes. An illiquid asset or non-liquid asset is one that you would have to go through some kind of a sales process to get cash out of. So for example, a house, it's going to take 90 days to see that cash at least, right? Okay, so to create a new bank account in Billy, you're going to create bank account here at the top right. Let's call it your payroll account. So this might be where you transfer money from your business checking account, and you want to keep that money separate so that you can pay yourself at the end of the month without worrying about overspending. The description is going to be required. So for owner's draw, the account type, because this is a checking account, I'm going to make it bank and liquid asset, and then I give it a number. And let's call it 30. Now, here's where things get interesting. If you live in the United States, it is very likely we do support your bank, in which case you can link my bank account here at the bottom right. If you don't live in the States, we don't have as much coverage of international banks right now. So in that case, you can just skip this and save the account. Let's call this 15. And that account is created. Okay. Now I want to give you some news on this front. Yes, inventory is a non-liquid asset as well. So Kim, you should, if you do have inventory and you want to account for that, go ahead and create a non-liquid asset account for inventory. Okay, now just a quick update on bank linking. We have signed an agreement with Yodlee, which is the same software provider that Xero, Wave, and QuickBooks uses to connect bank accounts. So if you're migrating from any of those platforms and your bank is on there, we will support that bank within 30 days. So we just started that process, and I'm pretty excited. We have amazing coverage in the UK. We're going to have pretty ubiquitous coverage in Asia as well, and as well as across Europe. So I'm really excited about this. Their services are very reliable. They have such a huge inventory of banks that they work with, and their support so far has been fantastic. So I'm really excited about this. So hang with us. We're growing. We're getting better. We're listening to your feedback. Okay, the next thing to set up is your credit cards. So a lot of people are asking, how do I add my credit card? Well, your credit card essentially is a bank account that's a liability. Okay, so we're going to create a credit card account. You go to create account, create bank account, and you can add your business credit cards. So for me, it might be an Inc. from Chase. Now, when I choose account type, instead of bank and liquid assets, I'm going to choose the credit card account type. Okay, and then I'm going to give that a number. And again, you can link your credit card account to Billy. It will import your transactions, and I'll show you how to manage that in a bit. If not, I will also show you how to import the CSV file, and we can go ahead and save that account. And we will see that we now have credit cards, and that one was just created. Okay, so chart of accounts, when you're migrating from any other accounting platform, you really want to make sure you're matching your chart of accounts. The old, whether you're coming from QuickBooks or Wave, look at the chart of accounts that you had. Make sure Billy has those as well. Okay, the next thing to do is to look at your opening balance. Now, what does opening balance mean? Opening balance means that, okay, we had a question about our account numbers. Let's go back to our chart of accounts and talk about that for a second. So there are some conventions with account numbers. We chose a 3-numbered account convention. Here's what I like to do. If you're adding a bank account, make the account number the last 4 digits of the bank account. So if your checking account ends in, let's go back up to that bank account. So if your bank account ends in 1, 2, 3, 4, make that account number 1, 2, 3, 4. Same with your credit card. If your credit card ends in 1, 2, 3, 4 or 5, 3, 2, 3, make your account number 5, 3, 2, 3. Otherwise, the way to look at your numbers here is that the 600s or 6000s are revenue type of accounts. 700s are direct cost accounts. 600s, again, are revenue accounts. 800s and 900s are expense accounts. Bank accounts, again, are just the last 4 of the account number. Assets are down here in the 30s and 40s. Fixed assets are at 100s, and current liabilities are in 300s. Now, this is all available online. If I'm going through this quite quickly because we don't have that much time together. And I'm definitely happy to support more accounting related questions as well going forward. Equity is in the 500s. All these conventions are available if you look up account number conventions. Okay, I'm going to check back here. Okay, we had a question about PayPal. Thanks, Simon, for reminding me about that. A lot of people are using PayPal, and I want to talk very quickly about how to deal with that. Now, we don't natively integrate with PayPal, and I think even Yodlee has trouble integrating with PayPal. I know when I was using Xero, I had to create my own direct integration with them, and that's something that we are indeed going to support in the next 60 to 120 days. In the meantime, what you should do for your PayPal is create basically what looks like a checking account for PayPal. Okay, so you would create bank account, call it PayPal, give it PayPal as a description, and call it a liquid asset, just like a checking account. And then we'll give it some kind of, let's call it 11, because we want it pretty low in the list, and then we would save that account. Now, what that's going to enable us to do when we create it in that way, we can now export our transactions from PayPal, clean them up. I don't know if you've ever seen transactions from PayPal, but it gives you bank transfers, currency conversions, fees that are separate from the actual payment, and it's sort of a mess when you get it from PayPal. That's why so many other companies struggle with that integration. So basically, with PayPal, you need to clean up your transactions in the spreadsheet that you download from them, so that you're only looking at single transactions, the money that you got in through a sale, the date, the description, and the amount you got in as a positive number, and then the money that you spent, the date, the description of that expense, and how much it cost. That should be the only things in the spreadsheet that you upload to Billy. I just wrote an article about this, so if you go to our support page, type in PayPal, setting up your PayPal account in Billy gives you more details if you want to go through those instructions, and I'm constantly updating this. Okay, let's get back to setting up your your accounting platform. One thing that a lot of people overlook when they do this is actually editing their opening balances. What does this mean? So if you have an opening balance of 0 and in your, let's say, your checking account, and you spend $100 to repay a credit card, your checking account is going to look like -100. However, we know that your checking account probably didn't start at 0. It probably started at, let's say, 1,000. So if you started at 1,000, pay $100 for your credit card, your current balance should actually be 900, not 0. But you have to tell Billy what that opening balance was, that $1,000 opening balance. And the way to do that is to go to your settings, go to tax settings, edit account balances, and here you can put in the amount of money that was in the account at the time of converting to Billy. So that means in this case, if we convert it to Billy, generally it's going to be at the beginning of your fiscal year. So let's say your fiscal year is July 1st. A lot of people it is. Every transaction we bring into Billy should start at July 1st. And so we're going to look at our conversion date for July 1st. That means we log into our bank account. We look at what our balance was on July 1st, and then we enter that amount in the proper account. So that's why we create the bank accounts first, then we enter our starting balance. And let's say our starting balance was $1,000. And then we go ahead and save that. So notice that we're now out of balance. Okay, so what do we do about this? We have $1,000 as an asset. That means we need to have $1,000 on the liabilities side of the balance sheet. Okay, so the way to do that is to look at other accounts that can be balanced. We could either create a new liability account that is called historical adjustment. Again, I know this is pretty fast for this type of detailed setup. So I did create a setup guide. So if you look at Billy support and you look at opening balance, enter conversion balances, I'm going to show you how to do that. So in our case, how do we balance our balance sheet? Well, that's $1,000 I contributed to the business from the checking account. So I'm going to go ahead and save that. The save button comes up when it is in balance. Now we can actually go into bank accounts and see that our opening balance has been updated in the reconcile page. And here's that opening balance that we put in, okay? And that will just stay there. Okay, any questions so far? I'm gonna come up for air. That was a lot. We got really into the weeds with accounting. I'm gonna go ahead and pause for a minute and see if you have any questions and take a sip of water. All right, a couple of quick questions. Don, you asked the PayPal info is helpful. Does Stripe or Square work any better? PayPal and Stripe have the exact same rate. That I think it's 30 cents per transaction, 2.9% of that transaction. So there's, with cost parity, there's no difference between Stripe and PayPal. So so that's there, but people still like to use PayPal. It's more international, and people seem to keep balances in there and use it a lot. Okay, so Don's clarifying Billy integration. Oh, okay, so we currently do not have a PayPal integration for making payments on invoices. Again, this is something that we are building out, so that's on our roadmap. Hope that answers your question, Don. So Martin, you asked, can we support UK tax year soon? Yeah, I've had some questions about this. To set up your tax year, you can actually just do that in settings. And then you go to tax settings, and you can actually set up when your tax year ends. So if that's going to be, I think you said April 6th to 4th of April. So you would change this to fiscal year starts in April. The last month is April. And then that's it. I think you said it was April 5th. So there you go. And I would also, I hope that answers your question. Yeah, it is month only. We've had requests to have that more specific to a date. So that's a feature that will come out. Let me answer a couple more questions here and then we'll move on. Another UK question from Dennis. Yes, we our month is currently month, day, year. I realize that the rest of the world doesn't look at dates the same way. That is something that we are going to have a toggle for within settings so that you can just update your own date format. That way you don't have to change your spreadsheet. So hope that answers your question, Dennis. Kim, you asked, can we change the account numbers that are already set up in Billy? Yes, absolutely. Go ahead and change them. That's not fixed or set in stone. They just can't be the same account number twice. Martin, you're asking, I know we have recurring invoices. You need to auto bill. When will this be included? That's something that's in QA right now. So we're doing quality assurance. We don't want to release features that we haven't tested. So that should be coming out quite soon. All right, so I'm going to check back with your chats. Okay. Melissa's adding some comments about Stripe. It's 30 cents per transaction plus the 2.9. It's far easier to use on your website than PayPal. Absolutely agree with that. Stripe is very, very seamless, very secure. It's just not an international option for a lot of people. All right, so I'm gonna look at my notes, make sure that we get through what we can. Okay, okay, so for those of you who are coming over from other platforms, the next thing you should probably think about is importing your contacts. The way to do that is to go to the contacts module here in Billy. And what I would suggest you do is actually export. When you export first, you'll see what fields are required. There's 3 categories of contacts, or three categories of the type of contact. We have customers, vendors, and both. And you need to know how we're labeling those within the spreadsheet before you go ahead and import. So with any new system, look at how our template looks like, export the contacts, look at how the columns are set up, make your old data look like that, and then import them. Make sure you get it right. I would suggest testing 1 or 2 records first to make sure they're set up correctly before putting in 100 or 100 contacts. Okay, and then we want to look at bank accounts. So the next thing is to bring in your transactions. You have your chart of accounts, you have your bank accounts created, you have your contacts imported. Now we need to get your transactions in. And the way to do that is when you go to your bank account, click on bank accounts, select the account that we're going to be importing into. So in this case, it's just going to be bank or checking account. And then this is where a lot of people, and this is feedback that we're hearing, but people are saying, where are my transactions? Well, they're in Reconcile. They're not going to show up until you reconcile them. So you click on Reconcile in the top right. And for those of you who don't have bank linking, you would upload your statement here. Okay. And then that statement is going to come in this main central area, this middle column of the app. Now, what's really cool about Billy is it has an intelligence. It's going to recognize that the amount and the date could represent a match. So let me explain what this means. So on the left column, this says your bank. Now, in my bank, we have this transaction called widgets and stuff that were paid for, okay? So that means I've received money from a customer for widgets and stuff for $500. Well, guess what? Billy has seen that I have an invoice outstanding for $500 on that date, okay? So what Billy is saying here is there could be a match. So originally this was over here. Billy said, this looks like that's a match. And indeed it is. So I'm gonna go ahead and match that transaction. And that invoice is now gonna show paid, okay? I wanna show you a couple of other examples of this. Let's say I got some Amazon royalties. Sold some books, Amazon wants to give me some money. Well, what are my options to recognizing that revenue? What you would do in Billy is create invoice. The customer is going to be Amazon, and the product is going to be royalties, and I'm going to match that. And when I match that, it will automatically create an invoice, and in my invoices section, which I'll show you in a second here, it will show that as revenue in, okay? I wanna pause and see what kind of questions we have about that. So does Billy, this is from Dominic, does Billy learn to reconcile transactions between bank accounts and accounts payable and accounts receivable, or do you always have to go through the reconciliation thing you showed? Yes, the reconciliation is a fail-safe. In any accounting software, whether it's Xero, I don't know so much about QuickBooks, but Xero has this fail-safe as well. It's not going to reconcile until you say, I approve, okay? And so what Billy is doing is it's matching it for you. You're going to say, yep, that payment in relates to that invoice that I sent out, and so I'm going to match them. So that's how you're going to get your reconcile between accounts payable and accounts receivable. Dominique, does that answer your question? I'm assuming so. All right. Next is about sales tax. So how do you set up sales tax? Again, if you go into your settings, and in fact, I want to show you my international account here for this, because this is pretty cool. So when you're in your international account and you're trying to set up VAT or GST or HST or whatever it is, you're going to want to set up two different tax rates or VAT rates. The first one is going to be your VAT on purchases, and the second one is going to be your VAT on sales. Now, what happens is when you have two different tax rates, Billy's going to know how to separate out the taxes you've paid on purchases so that it doesn't show up in your expense report as the expense itself. Okay, so in other words, if we look at our balance sheet, we can see that we have a separate account for VAT or taxes that I've paid on purchases. And we also have a separate account for taxes that I've been paid. Those two things can be separated out. You can have as many tax rates as you want. Some countries have more than one, in which case you might have to call it some kind of provincial tax or whatever it is. So it's a very flexible system. Within settings, you can create as many tax rates as you need. You just create the rate. And with the deduction components, this is where you tell Billy which account to take that tax and put it into for proper accounting. Again, I've created a help document just on this. So if you want more on setting up your tax rates, then you'll be able to do that. And Kim, it looks like you were in Texas. You can do the same thing. So you would create a tax rate for Texas, then create one for California. And then you can actually create rules. What's really cool about this is you can create a rule set that says if that invoice is in the United States and is in any state, so let's say is in California, then we're going to use a particular tax rate. So automatically, Billy will apply the correct tax rate based on what state that invoice is getting sent to. Hope that answers your question. Question from Martin, turn off that from the invoice. Yes, that is something that is coming. We're going to make it so that if you don't apply any taxes at all to an invoice, you will never see the word taxes or VAT on that invoice. There's no reason to include it. I want to come back to this reconcile page really quickly and address a couple of really important issues that you're going to need for your day-to-day. The first is, what if I have a personal transaction and I want to take that off? Some of you said you have commingled your personal and business accounts. So what if you have some personal transactions in here that you don't want muddling up your business accounting? You head on over to edit at the top, you select the transaction from your bank that is personal and you delete it. That is the best way to take out your personal finances from Billy so that your business accounting is accurate. Okay, next is, what about these bills? So how do you pay your credit card? Oh, good, thanks, Kim. I'll mark this as answered. So we had a question from Enrique. How do you edit your description of a transaction? I will show you how to do that. So let's say that you have a transaction for an invoice that was paid. Click on the invoice, and right on the side, you can edit the timeline. You can add comments to the invoice. This person is always late. You can also do this with bills. This is particularly important with bills. Let's say you went out for coffee. You want to write down here for your accountant, had business meeting with Henry, Henry VIII. Okay. And that's going to be available for your accountant to see. All right. Hope that answers your question, Enrique. All right, let's keep going. I want to show you how to reconcile expenses and also partial payments, and then we'll get to more questions. So we'll go to our bank accounts. I want to talk about paying your credit card. This is something you hopefully do every month. What does it look like? So when you pay your credit card, you're going to have a transaction from your bank that's negative. So the way to do this is actually very simple, but it's not intuitive because this is just how accounting, double entry accounting is. So if you do pay your credit card, pay attention to the next 30 seconds. I'm going to show you how to actually account for that within Billy. You're going to see a negative transaction in your credit card. The way to handle this is to create another transaction when you're reconciling and pick the credit card account that paid for it or that you paid. And then you click match. Now, what this does is it creates a transaction in the right-hand column of that credit card. I'm going to go to that credit card and I'll see that the credit card has a positive transaction of $261.92 when it was paid. So I need to find that payment from the checking account, drag it, as easy as this, drag it here and match it. And that is it. You have now shown that money from your checking account went into your credit card account and paid it down, okay? And so when you go back to your account overview, you're going to have that account balance reflect what actually is in your bank. Okay, I wanted to make sure I handled that. I hope that answered a main question that everybody's gonna have to deal with. We're getting questions about autopay. We don't currently do autopay. The cool thing with Stripe is that when somebody pays your recurring invoice with Stripe the first time, Stripe is going to remember who they are the second time and the third time. So they won't have to re-enter their credit card number. They can just click on pay. That being said, Stripe does have an API integration that we're currently building. Like I said, it's in quality assurance to make sure that when we roll it out, it works for you so that that payment can be automatically charged to your customer. Alex is asking, what do I have to do and how do I name it if I take money from a business account for personal matters and later put it back? Very, very good question. This is something that I do every month. I call this owner's draw. How do I pay myself from my business? Well, it's actually a lot simpler than you might think. So let's say I took some money out of my checking account here, and there's a negative balance for it. Let me actually upload a transaction so we can see what that looks like. Let's say on July 1st, I did a transfer to a personal account for $3,000. And I'm going to go ahead and upload a statement to reflect that. Okay. So, it needs to be a negative $3,000, my bad. So again, I'll upload that statement. It has that negative $3,000. When I paid myself, and this is how you account for that, that essentially is owner's draw. So here it is. The transfer to a personal account. Sorry, I spelled it wrong. Here's what you do. You create another transaction. The account that you're creating the transaction to is owner's draw, which is right here. Okay. And that's all you do. Pretty simple. It shows that transaction here as a transfer to owner's draw, and that takes it out of your account. Hopefully that answers your question. Trying to see who asked that. Okay, let's talk about receipts. So what happens when you go out and you take some pictures of receipts from dinner or lunch or coffee? You can upload the receipt. You could also just drag and drop it within the bill section. So we create a bill, and what I'm going to do is bring over a receipt. So I'm going to put that here. And let's say that that vendor is Symposium Coffee. I had that coffee on the 10th of June. And it was due on the 10th of June because that's when I paid it. This is where you add the description for the expense. And then you add the expense category. In this case, it's meals and entertainment, which is taxed in the US at 50% and then I approve that. Now, what's really cool is that when you see that credit card transaction, so we'll go back to our bank account. We're going to go to our credit card account and reconcile it. And we see that here's coffee on June 10th that we paid for. We can actually see that on the right, there's a matching bill, and this one has the receipt actually associated with it. We drag and drop, match that bill, and then we'll see that receipt is actually connected with this transaction. Okay, I hope that answers that question. And again, that will be in bills, and it will show paid for. Okay, so we answered Alex's question. We've got about 10 minutes left. I want to just make sure that I'm covering what I want to for you guys. Partial payments. So that's the last topic I want. And then I'll get completely back to your questions. So what happens when somebody pays you 50% up front, or they only pay 90% of their bill and there's a balance? So if we look at some of our invoices that are unpaid, so we have a couple of undue invoices, and we have a bunch of unpaid invoices. So have we gotten money yet for some of these? Let's go check. We go to our bank accounts. We're going to reconcile. Again, that's the workflow. We're going to go to our bank account, our checking account, and we're going to see if we had money in. And it looks like we did have some money in. But we got, let's say we got $500, but the invoice itself is $1,000. So Billy is going to recognize that these don't actually have an amount match. So we have to tell Billy what to do about this. Well, you would categorize this as a partial payment. Okay, and so what that's going to do is make this go away, and that invoice number 56, and I'll show you what this looks like. Invoice number 56 is now partially paid. Hope you guys can see that. And now we can go and send the balance to our customer. And this is what the invoice is going to look like when we send a partial payment invoice to our customer. Okay. Okay, good. I just wanted to make sure we covered that. Rowan, we talked about personal expenses. You take them out of Billy. So we talked about that a little bit earlier. Owner's Draw can do reimbursements also. Yes, but if you're getting reimbursed, if you're reimbursing yourself, or this is what I do, Melissa, if let's say I have to pay for my health insurance as a small business, the way I would do that is call it an owner's draw within Billy to get it out of accounting. Or what I would do is categorize that as a health insurance payment so that I can see that in my taxes. If you want to reimburse yourself for something that's not a business expense, you do owner's draw. If it is a business expense that you're reimbursing yourself for, you actually want to categorize it correctly. So for example, if you have an internet business, and again, this is not tax advice, but if you have an internet-based business, your internet costs may be tax deferred or credited. It just depends on what your tax law is. So you can take a portion of what you pay for your internet and put that into, let's say, your a separate account called utilities. All right, thank you so much for your chat there. I'm going to come back to questions. What about a business loan? This is from Paige. What about a business loan that I need to pay down? Is that considered capital contribution or line of credit. So it's that's sort of a in the weeds accounting question that I'm hesitant to answer for you here, Paige. So I'm sorry. It's sort of both. There's actually going to be two transactions that you do here. So you're going to have, on your balance sheet, you're going to have a liability, which is going to balance on the asset side as cash in hand from a line of credit. So it's kind of both. And then when you pay it off, those are going to go into lowering that liability, and as well as lowering the amount of cash that you have access to. So that's sort of the short way of answering that. I would definitely consult with an accountant on how to put that in your books. How do I import my Wave transactions? Darren, we sort of covered that. No problem, Paige. We sort of covered that earlier when we looked at creating your chart of accounts, remember? And then creating the, going into that actual bank account and importing those transactions from Wave. What I would say is it's probably better to directly import the transactions from your account than it is from Wave. Now, if you really wanted to just take it from Wave, you could use the journal. I have put together an extensive article on journal importing. However, this is intermediate to advanced accounting, and what I would suggest is if you're coming from Wave, to use MMC Convert, which is just going to help you automate that. You know, you have to look at your time. Converting from Wave to Billy is going to cost around, you know, anywhere between $39 for a basic import to $100. Now, think about your time. If it's going to take you 2.5 hours to figure out how to do that, clean up the data, what is your time worth? Is it worth $39? I would hope so. I suggest that you can automate that transition as much as possible. Darren, I hope that answers your question. Jeannie, I also purchased Better Proposals from Sumo around the same time that I signed up with Billy. There is going to be an integration. It will come. It's not available right now. Adam, who's the CEO of Better Proposals, and I are best buds. We're on Skype every day, but we do have a lot of new customers and a lot of other feature requests that are seemingly more pressing for more people. So we are going to do that. It's just a matter of time. Dominic, how does Billy handle an incoming receipt with a negative balance? I found Wave won't let it. So you could do that in Billy. So I'm not sure I totally understand your question. If you get a refund, that means you're going to have a positive balance in your checking account or your credit card. So that positive balance just goes to the same expense category. Let's say you purchase software, you didn't for $10, you didn't like it, software gets refunded, and that means you get $10 back into your credit card. Well, you just recategorize that $10 into the dues and subscriptions expense account, and then it will negative itself out. Does that? You get a receipt for a negative number? Yeah. So that would work the same way. No problem. How do I enter payments from Uber or Lyft when there is no invoice? Well, when you get paid, when Uber and Lyft send you money, I think they use Stripe to distribute their funds. I know Uber does. You get money from Stripe. Stripe sends the money to your checking account. You go to your checking account and you have income. And like I demonstrated just a few minutes ago, when you have income in your checking account, you click on Reconcile, and you create the invoice. The invoice customer could be Uber. Create a new one. Super easy to do. And then you say, you know, that's for rides. So create a new product called rides. You don't have to create. You don't have to do any kind of manual creation of an invoice. You just go ahead and match it, and you now have in your account balance income from rides from Uber. I hope that answers your question, Cenk. Travis, do I manually send reminders for recurring invoices? That's actually really cool. With recurring invoices, let's create a new one. Actually, let's just go to this one. You can, when you look at your options with recurring invoices, you can change the action that recurring invoice takes. So it can create the invoice and automatically email the customer, or it can just create the invoice. Or if you need to make some adjustments to your time spent or add reimbursement line items, you can just make it a draft. So you can choose the action that recurring invoice actually takes. It will automatically email the customer if you would like it to. Travis, does that answer your question? Dean and Tara, yeah, Billy is very secure from being hacked. You can see several things. First, we do use SSL certifications on all of our pages. So unless you're giving out your password or using a weak password, which we can't really control if you do that, though we recommend you don't, Billy is absolutely secure. In fact, we use bank level security. All of our services are on Amazon Web Services, which is imminently scalable, as well as very secure. I hope that answers your question, Dean and Tara. If not, go ahead and put some comments in there. What are the best account types for investment payments? I'm not sure I understand what you mean by investment payments. Payments from investments, that would be income. So that would be a revenue account type.